y equals 1 is the most popular constant function, yes? So there's no x in the equation, so it doesn't matter what x is. We already said x could be 2 or 5. What else could it be? Out loud, with your mouth. 7. It could be 10. Somebody choose one more of a number unlike what we've chosen before.
-1.
-1. Okay? It doesn't matter what x is because y is always going to be what? 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yes? Let's plot these points real quick. If x is 2, y is 1. If x is 5, y is 1. If x is 7, if x is 10, if x is -1. Do you have a good idea of what this parent function looks like? What's it look like then? Okay, so for the record, by definition, lines are straight, right? So can you use a different adjective to describe this line to me? Horizontal. It's a horizontal line, right? Where is the x-intercept of this horizontal line? Where does this line cross the x-axis? Oh, it doesn't? So there's no x-intercept? Okay, where does it cross the y-axis? At 1, right? Now, what I need you to be clear about is that the y-intercept is a point. So we have to name it as a point. And 1 is just a number. So tell me what the point is then. 0, 1. Very good. Okay? Now, have you heard of domain and range? If you look up at that list on my board of all the things that we have to talk about this year, domain and range shows up like 8 or 9 times. Like a lot, right? So do you think that means domain and range is important or we don't care about it? It's important, right? Okay, so do you know anything about domain? What is it? It's the x's. I'm going to go ahead and put myself a little hint out here. That's the x's. What's the range? The y's. Okay? So here's how we're going to talk about domain and range. For domain, we're going to say how far left does it go or how far right does it go. Does that make sense? If we're talking about the x's, we're talking about left and right, right? So we're talking about least to greatest. So we talk about left to right. What are we going to talk about for range? Okay, so can I argue? You're not wrong, but I just need to change your vocabulary a little bit. Is that okay? Okay? So for domain, we talk about left to right because we talk about least to greatest. Least to greatest. So what should we talk about for range? Down to up, right? Down to up. I know you said up and down, and that's not wrong. But if we're really talking about least to greatest, don't we need to talk about down to up? Does that make sense? Okay? So for domain, how far to the left does this go? All the way, right? How far to the right does it go? All the way. So mathematically, what do I mean by all the way? Right? If we're talking about math, what'd you say?
Infinity.
Infinity, right? Now, in Algebra 1, you had to write domain and range in inequality notation. So you probably wrote all real numbers. It's like a R, but with 2 bars on the left-hand side. Okay? In Algebra 2, we have to know inequality notation and interval notation. And that looks like this. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay? Now, something that's kind of funny, like math funny, not like actual funny, but math funny, is that there's no such thing as negative infinity. So why in the world did I just write negative infinity for you? Well, it's just a notation. This is telling me that I'm talking about to the left. So does it make sense that I would say negative infinity when talking about to the left? So just infinity implies we're talking about to the right. Does that make sense when we're talking about this notation? Yes? Okay, so now what about range? How far down does it go? Does it go to infinity? No, where does it go to? 1. How far up does it go? Only 1. So y equals 1. for this particular parent function. In interval notation, we say 1 with some brackets around it, because that's the only value that's allowed for its range. Okay? What about symmetry? Does it have symmetry? Can you fold it in half and it's on itself? Like if I folded it like this, wouldn't it be right on top of itself? So the symmetry then is around the y-axis, isn't it? I mean, technically, I could fold it here, right? It would be on itself here. But if we're talking in general, we could fold it right on the axis and it would be on top of itself, right? Okay? What is the highest point of this graph? Is that a trick question? It is, isn't it? Why? Is there a highest point? No. So where's the lowest point? Also none, because there's not a lowest point. Okay? Intervals of increase or decrease. What I want you to write over here is that we're talking about domain. That means we're starting on the left and we're moving to the right. And I'm asking you, where is it increasing? As I move from left to right, where is it increasing? Nowhere, right? It's just a horizontal line, so it's not increasing and it's not decreasing, is it? This is new notation in Algebra 2, end behavior. As x is moving to the left, as x is going to negative infinity, what's happening to y? In this particular problem, what is y all the time? So as x is moving to the left, y is 1. As x is moving to the right, what is y? Also 1. Any questions on the first one? Okay. That one took a while, didn't it, right? Because I was trying to explain everything as we went. Ready to go a little faster on the next one? Okay. What's this one called? Linear. It's a linear parent function. Why is it called a parent function again? Do you remember? Is anything being added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided? No. Right? It's the function before anything else starts. So it's just x. Okay, so that's a line. So it's called a linear parent function. Let's go down here to the table. Most of the time, it's going to be okay to use these numbers in here. Okay, we just chose randomly up here because it didn't matter what x was, because y was always going to be 1. Most of the time, it's going to be good to use these because we've got some negative, we've got a 0, and we've got some positive, and they're all kind of close to the origin, right? Okay. So if x is negative 2, what's y? If y equals x and x equals negative 2, what's y? Negative 2, because they're equal, right? If x is negative 1, what's y? Negative 1. If x is 0, what's y? If x is 1, what is y? And 2? 2. So let's plot these on the graph. Negative 2, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. You okay so far? Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to try to trick you. Okay? Now, can I take a quick commercial break real fast? Okay. I am a human. Okay? I'm a human. And so sometimes I'm going to mess up. If I mess up and you notice it, I need you to call it to my attention. Oh, Mrs. Kingston, I think that's supposed to be a 5. Right? That's not going to offend me at all because I am a human and I sometimes mess up. Okay? I am not one of those people that when you correct my mistake, I go, oh, I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Well, if I can never mess up, how in the world do you have permission to mess up? Right? Are you going to mess up in here sometimes? Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, it is. Okay? I give you a lot of chances to answer, right? I told you before we have to have a communication in here. I talk, you talk, that kind of thing. We communicate. What if you say the wrong answer out loud? Is that allowed? Yeah, absolutely. This has to be a safe place. It has to be a safe place, right? If you say the answer wrong, I'm not going to make fun of you, and I'm not going to let anyone else make fun of you either. If they do, I'll take them outside and beat the crap out of them. I'm 50, but I can still take you. Okay? That was just a little joke. Okay? I don't want you to make fun of other people if they mess up. Okay? I'm going to ask you to try again, or I'm going to say it's close. I'm going to try to ask questions to help you get to the or to the right answer. The wrong answer doesn't automatically mean you don't ever talk again. Okay? You've treated me with respect from when you come in. I'm going to treat you with respect. Okay? And being respectful is that we correct each other when we mess up. Is that fair? Okay? Now, if you shout at me and you're like, idiot, it's supposed to be a 5, I'm going to want to kick you in the face. Okay? I probably won't because I don't want to get fired that particular day, probably. Okay? But we help each other. Is that fair? Okay? So now I'm going to try to trick you. I'm telling you that ahead of time. You ready? Do you have a good idea of what this graph looks like? Just because I'm trying to trick you doesn't mean you don't answer. Okay? Do you have a good idea of what you think this graph looks like? Yes? Does it look like this? It's tricky, isn't it? Why am I sure that it looks like this? Because those are the points I plotted, and we know it's a function, so I know I can connect them, right? But is that all it looks like?